well as the things that they have planned for the future. So I'm going to open it with Ambassador Claxton. She can just give us some information, some insight on how we are related to these wonderful people from the Southern University.
Sure. Can you hear it? Okay. So happy to be here, and thank you so much for the introduction. So I will briefly introduce the folks that we have here on the panel. Everybody knows the Honorable Samuel Duggins. Yes. Here we have Chancellor Dr. Orlando McMeans. He is the head of the Southern University Agricultural Extension and Research Center. Next to him is Dr. Jana Snowden, who is the executive director of the Southern Institute for Medicinal Plants, and cannabis falls under that. And then next to her, we have vice chair of the Southern University Board of Supervisors, Dr. Ronnie Whitfield. And so the partnership with Southern really started with an education focus with the greater university. So Southern University has over 80 degree programs in every field that you can think of. And it first started with me presenting to their Board of Supervisors back in January of this year, specifically looking for affordable options for petitions and divisions with respect to education. As we move that conversation further, and after signing the education piece of the collaboration, the partnership with Southern University, I really started to dive into what all their expertise really were. And with meeting them and being sort of delved into the university and meeting each of the professors and the heads and the stakeholders, I was able to really develop a relationship with Dr. McMeans and Dr. Snowden and get a true understanding of their cannabis, the production. They have a facility, a very grand facility that does research, new product development, and cannabis sales. Now, I'll let Dr. Snowden jump into it a little more, but Honorable Samuel Duggins and Dr. Garfield Alexander and myself were able to tour their Institute for Medicinal Plants that has a specific focus on cannabis. And it really is very impressive. They're doing things in the US that no other institution in that country is doing in terms of marijuana research and production of new products. For example, there is a 40 milligram gummy, which is unheard of in the industry and which no one else has, that I will let them jump into a little bit more. But as I spoke to them more and more, I realized that we truly can partner with them and have it be an extension of the partnership that we already have with them for education and now the agricultural partnership that's focused around food security. There's a lot of work to be done, frankly, around cannabis. And Dr. Alexander and I have spoken about starting with a focus on education around it and sort of removing that stigma that some people in the community have around cannabis and really trying to teach youth and really the greater audience in the community about the benefits of cannabis. What is it good for? Why do we need it? Why is it important for us? And I think I'll go ahead and just turn it over to Dr. McMeans and Dr. Snowden here to talk about some of the work that we are already doing with Southern University on the cannabis front.
Okay. Okay. So it's great to be here. Let me preface my comments by just saying all three of my degrees are in plant science. So I'm a horticulturalist, plant physiologist, and a plant geneticist. And the joke that I tell a lot of people, out of all the plants I thought I would be working on as a plant scientist, cannabis never crossed my mind. But at the same time, when I was doing my PhD, I was very interested in the beneficial products and aspects of plants. And so I used to read books on environment and man and how humans have co-evolved with plants, from spiritual to the medicinal to all various aspects of life. And to be in this space, in this place at this time is just amazing because it seems like I've been prepared to actually deal with this. I was talking to Dr. Snowden. I deal in factorials, when you're working an experiment. You know what I'm talking about, Doc. And so it is almost an endless matrix, so to speak. And so we have not even cracked the surface of where we can go with cannabis, medicinal cannabis research. So as the chancellor and as the dean, I am heavily advocating for us to not only to continue to do research and develop products, but also, as Dr. Whitfield and I talk about, prepare our younger generation that we are educating to possibly have roles in that industry. And then, as Her Excellency said, demystify the myth of what people perceive cannabis to be. And so, as a land-grant institution, we have a tripartite mission, and that is the education piece, or academics. We have the research, but the vehicle for all of that is our extension program. And so what we try to do with our partner in our Lyra Holistic Healthcare, which Dr. Snowden will talk a little bit about that, is to go out and educate the various communities and constituent groups about cannabis, about medicinal marijuana, and about its uses and benefits. And so what we want to do with our MOU that we signed with St. Kitts, and then also working with Nevis, is to expand that. We've already seen I've seen some beautiful plants that, quite frankly, don't have the growth habit structure as I've seen in our grow facilities. And so it's an opportunity for us to get involved on the R&D level. Most of if not 99% of what we do is indoor control environment. And then places that I've been in other countries, outdoors, light. And so I think we can learn from one another. And I'm just happy to be the first HBCU in this space. And I'm glad to be working with other HBCUs to help bring them along in our neighboring states as we move this program forward. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Snowden.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to be here. Oh. Thank you for the opportunity to actually be here. It is beautiful. I've had many conversations with Dr. Garfield regarding this trip here and seeing, what it is that St. Kitts and Nevis has to offer. Now, I too, as Chancellor McMeans, I never thought that I would be in this space. And one of those reasons is because throughout my childhood, I spent many days visiting the jailhouse, to see my relatives who were incarcerated because of this plant. So never thought that we would actually be here today. But we've been in operation for 5 years. We actually signed our letter of intent in 2016 with the state of Louisiana. And if you know anything about the state of Louisiana, it is very conservative. So to say the least. But it's very conservative. So we do deal with legislation where it actually changes constantly in regards to this program, this medical program. And as Dr. McMeans stated, we are the first HBCU in this space. We only have 2 operators in our state who go from seed to sale, with us being, one of the license holders. But what we do, because we do receive federal funding, we cannot directly grow at the university. So we had to contract a third party to come and build a facility for us outside of the campus. So through that, we're able to produce many different products, and I think we're going to see some of those later on. But we have approximately 40 products on the market right now, and as Her Excellency did it, she mentioned the Oh My gummy. That is a gummy that actually was named, by the chancellor. I won't tell you the story. I'll let him tell that if he chooses to. But that is a story that, a gummy that was named from him. And from that, we also have Jaguar Bites our second products, and we're working on more such as tea bags and things like that. But I will say that in this 5 years that it has been quite the venture. I will say that it has been profitable for us. We have received 6.15 million from our vendor in this operation in this past 5 years. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Whitfield because he does help us on the education side, and we'll discuss that a little later because Dr. Garfield and I are actually working on a curriculum right now that would benefit both St. Kitts and Nevis and our university as well.
Good evening, Your Excellency, Minister Duggins. This has been an amazing trip. I'm very excited to be here. And I'm not just the vice chairman of the Southern University System Board of Supervisors, I'm also a family doctor. So this means a lot to me when it comes to treating patients. And I want to tell you guys a little bit about our university first. Again, I'm the vice chairman of the Board of Supervisors, which constitutes 16 individuals. Our chairman, Myron Lawson, is also here today. Mr. Lawson, could you please? Thank you. Yeah, he's standing. He's standing. We are the only HBCU system in the world. Some say the country, I like to say the world because we are the only one in the world. We have 3 campuses, 5 colleges, a campus in Baton Rouge, a campus in Shreveport, and a campus in New Orleans. On the Baton Rouge campus, we have a law school and the Ag Center. We also have one of the top nursing schools in the country. And so we are very, very excited to be here and be a part of this because we want to collaborate with St. Kitts and Nevis. And when I got here, on the way here, I'm thinking, man, what can we do? How can we help? After meeting the people and interacting with the school, I was like, wait a minute, there's a lot that you all can do for us. And we're looking at collaborative agreements where we can send our students over here. I would like to be a student so I could stay over there for 3 months as well and enjoy the view. But again, looking at agreements where we could work with you all. So there's a lot of collaborative opportunities for both countries. And so again, as a family doctor, what I'm personally seeing, and I'll speak on that personal level, is that, and you guys don't seem to have that issue, is we have a lot of chronic pain, opioid epidemics, a lot of opioid overdoses. And since we started the cannabis program, we've seen those numbers decline significantly. My patients that would come in asking for chronic pain medications that are now on the Jaguar Bites, our gummy, but I was going to say our mascot is the Jaguar. So that's why we call it the Jaguar Bites. And as our chairman will tell you, that God must be a Jaguar fan because the sky is blue and the sun is gold. So we think that God's a Jaguar fan for sure. But we have seen the numbers decrease significantly. And so we're trying to demystify or take that myth away that cannabis is bad. And I don't even use the word marijuana so much. There's a lot of history behind that word marijuana, a lot of negative history. You guys can do some research on Harry Anslinger and how they demonized African Americans and Hispanics for using cannabis at that time back in the early 1900s. So again, think about the system, who we are, 16 board members that manage this system of schools. But also in conjunction with our Ag Center. We want to do some great things here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So thank you guys for having us.
And I guess that leaves me next, right? But I want to really talk about how magical this has all been. Extremely. Now, after assuming the role as minister responsible for agriculture, and by extension, development of a cannabis industry, I first thought we have to see what exactly is going on all around us. And I took the time and I visited Antigua, and I saw what they were doing there. I took the time and I visited St. Vincent, and I saw what they were doing there. I took some time and I visited Jamaica and the campus of the University of the West Indies, and I saw what Dr. Emmanuel was doing there as well. And then I had the opportunity in September to venture to Southern University and saw what they were doing there. And I must say, the operations at Southern University really blew me away. And recognizing where they were and the advancements that they have been making, it really brought to bear that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We are now stepping out of the gates, and we have had a number of territories and organizations that would have gone out before us. And I must say, and here I must also compliment the work of the CEO, Dr. Garfield Alexander, because on a number of those trips, yes, he would have been present with me on most of those trips. And to be quite honest, his enthusiasm, his drive has really been pushing this cannabis industry far beyond any legislation, anything that we could do in the halls of parliament. And I don't think that gets enough credit. Even what we've had today is really testament to the drive and the enthusiasm of Dr. Alexander. And I can't state that enough. Thank you for your passion. But I also must take this time to also commend our ambassador, Harriet Claxton. Now, I say magical because, and I can't even begin to tell the true story of how all of this evolved into where it is. But the truth is, we started this, you know, I wouldn't say with a simple vision, but she mentioned it, to find affordable education. And we went to Southern and we signed the initial MOU. And as we did that, we thought that was big. But in that moment of collaboration and getting to understand each other's culture and who we are as a people, all of this evolved into what we are having today. And what was, initially having our residents and our nationals pay in-state tuition, and we thought, we had hit the jackpot with that. Today we have scholarships. And just last night, we had our National Carnival Queen receiving a full tuition scholarship from Southern University. In January, yes, that's historic. In January, we have one of our nationals going off to do a doctoral program at Southern University, again with the support, another full scholarship. And these things have evolved from some of the most magical moments. Like, Scott could tell you how some of these evolved. And, it's quite interesting. But it's always being present, the right place at the right time, and being ready to grab opportunities. Because sometimes the opportunities are right in front of us. And, there's a philosophy that I've developed, and I've shared that with Ms. Claxton. If you don't ask, you won't know. And so a lot of times it was just really asking the right questions to the right people at the right time. And I've watched this blossom into a very fruitful partnership, relationship. I have gained a number of brothers and sisters over the last few months. And I love it. But I think more than just what it means to even me, the ambassador, what it means to our country and our people on a whole. Because the advancement, the education, the support, and again, we don't have to go and reinvent the wheel. We have an entire game plan, roadmap that's already laid out for us. And that is what this is really about. So again, thank you, Mr. McMean. Sloden, all of you. All of you, thank you so much for what you're doing for St. Kitts and Nevis. Indeed, what you're doing for agriculture, and more specifically, what you're doing to drive, finally, a real cannabis industry in St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your opening remarks. Chancellor, I've been asked to ask you if you could expound a bit on the land grant institution and explain what that is.
Yes. Through my career, I've been in higher education for 25 years. And I've been to 5 universities, and they just all happen to be land grant institutions. There are 107 to 110 land grant institutions, and the reason why they call them land grant is that as the U.S. was being settled and moving from the east to the west, we noticed that people had no idea, concept, what it was for farming and taking care of the land. Basically, they were utilizing all the nutrients. There was no such thing as looking at fertilizers. They didn't understand this and that. They just basically pillaged the land and went as they would move westward. The other thing that was going on is that all the universities in the 1800s were associated with theological type of education. So there was never any institutions erected with the basic fundamental of giving individuals, they call the average citizen, a proper education in agriculture, engineering, mechanical arts and sciences, and classicals. And so what happened is in 1862 with the passage of the first Morrill Act, and Morrill was Justin Morrill, who was then a congressman from Vermont, who worked with President Lincoln to establish these land grant institutions whereby each state granted a certain amount of land, the federal government granted a certain amount of land for these institutions to build institutions, but also sell some of the land and use the proceeds to erect these universities. However, the Ohio states, the Auburns, the Texas A&M, and the University of Florida as well, our people were not able to have access to those institutions. So then Senator Morrill in 1890, that's why they call us 1890 land grant institutions, set forth the second Morrill Act to deal with descendants of slaves and ex-slaves to educate them in the same disciplines. And to that point, we have 19 1890s in, I think, 18 states. So there's 2 in Alabama, my alma mater, Alabama A&M, and though Dr. Marshall wants me to say this correctly, Tuskegee University. That was tough to say that, Dr. Marshall. And so, and with all of the land grant institutions, now we have 3 sets. We have the 1862s, the 1890s, but in 1994, tribal colleges came in. So now we all call those 1994s. And so we have these group of institutions with the same mission: research, extension, and education. And so to that fact, I tell my staff, we are mission mandated to do what we do. We should partner with St. Kitts and Nevis because that's our mission. I heard you say something that's amazing, and I'm thinking about all of your colleagues. By the way, you guys are exceptional, just bright and hungry people. I love to meet that in our people who want to grow and do better. But one of my barbers told me a long time ago, he said, let me tell you, and never graduated from high school. He said, let me tell you about success. And I was at West Virginia State University at the time. And he said, there's this formula. He said, here's success. He says, success, the first part of that is opportunity plus preparation equals success. Opportunity can come along a lot of time, but if you're not prepared to take hold of it and move it, then you will miss that opportunity to be successful. So what I'm seeing here in St. Kitts and Nevis is a whole bunch of people who are prepared to move to that next level, and so I'm happy to be a part of that. And I hope I didn't get too deep in the land grant mission, because I've had over the last 25 years, people come to me and say, can you grant me some land? So they don't have the concept of what it means to be an 1890 land grant institution. So thank you for allowing me to give you a bit of just fundamentals on the land grant system.
No, I suspect that's exactly why I was asked to ask you that question, so that you could go that far in depth. Thank you so much for that. So I guess I think what I would like to know, and what everybody else in the room would like to know, is what are your projections for this relationship? Where do you see this relationship taking both of us?
Education first is paramount. I think it's one of the visions of Dr. Alexander and myself. When the Prime Minister first asked me to jump in on this initiative and to assist with Dr. Alexander and Honorable Duggins, I started doing as much research as I possibly could, because I don't do anything halfway, right? And in speaking further with Dr. Alexander and the vision that I had for where this could go, once I spoke with him, now, we went to school together. We've known each other for a long time, right? But had not necessarily in the last 20 years really had an opportunity to understand where has his mind gone in the last 20 years since we left high school. And the vision that I had for where cannabis could go, the first time we spoke on this, we had the same vision. And that was really what allowed me to jump all in and to move this forward. So one of the first things that we are looking at is education. So before we even get to the steps of development, right, is research and education, because we have to do away with the stigma around cannabis. But in addition to that, there's a need for our people in St. Kitts and Nevis to get a greater understanding themselves about the medicinal properties of the plant and other health-based properties of the plant. So one of the things that we are doing first, Dr. Alexander was back up in Baton Rouge, and I joined him there with Dr. Snowden and Dr. McMeans maybe a month ago, and we started working on a number of initiatives around education. So specifically certifications around cannabis, crop production, understanding, different areas of focus. So that is one of the first initiatives, and it's something that Southern University did not have that before our collaboration with them, right? So as they teach us, we teach them at the same time. And as we have further conversations around what are the needs for our people, we realize that really it mirrors what their needs are for African Americans. One of the things that was really important to me as well, and I know it was important to Dr. Alexander, is that Southern University is a historically Black university. And in the field of cannabis, you don't find that every day. This is very rare to find. And to find people this smart with the same vision and vision for people of the African diaspora, right? And how they can assist St. Kitts, possibly eventually other countries in the region and in the world, but specifically the African diaspora. So the first step, I believe, and I know Dr. Alexander also echoes this, is education. And I'll let Dr. Snowden jump into some of the other initiatives that we've discussed as well.
You're on.
I was going to comment before Dr. Snowden and just stress how important the education piece is for the Board of Supervisors. Two things that I was not prepared for as a physician, one was COVID and one was cannabis. And the research that I've done, and please correct me if I'm wrong, one of the issues that we have in the United States is that most physicians don't know what to do with the medicine. So there's still a lot of stigmas around. So Dr. Snowden and I are actually working on curriculums to educate the physicians in the state. So we want to have all those physicians come. We have a brand new facility on campus that we really excited about, a museum, and it's based on African American history and the history of Southern University. We want to invite these physicians to the state to educate them on that. Dr. Alexander, you may be one of our guest speakers. So we want to educate our physicians first of all. But again, we were not prepared for COVID and definitely not prepared to educate ourselves or our patients on cannabis. And so education, Your Excellency, is of the utmost importance to us. And we are working a curriculum out that I plan to be involved in deeply with that.
Most definitely. So I will say education, that was the number one priority for us. And that was with Southern University coming into this space because, as mentioned before, what we found out is many were not educated about this. Many, all they thought was that you were going to just go, smoke to get high, not knowing that it's a medical side to this, and so that's what we wanted to focus on, removing this negative stigma about the plant itself. So we actually started off at the university. We started going around the state and holding forums to educate people about the plant itself, and just letting them know that, this is medicine. This is medicine. And also, we've been working in legislature trying to change some of the rules that have been set forth because of the fact that you call it medicine, but you don't want to treat it as medicine. So we're working to change some of those. Now, when I first met Dr. Garfield Alexander, I found that we were more similar than not. And it was about the people. And that's what our mission was, to make sure that we produce a quality medication for our citizens. And that has been the goal since day one. And we wanted to make sure, and again, if you know anything about Southern Louisiana or Southern United States, those states are very conservative. And, people that look like us, when it comes to things of this nature, although we've been the ones that have been doing the research, we've been doing research on this for years and years and years, but under the table, of course. But now that we have a position and are in a position to actually, bring this to the forefront, we want to make sure that not only we do it right, but that we are serving the people that need to benefit from this medication. And Dr. Whitfield, he always touches on the mental health aspects of it, and we want to make sure that we cover those grounds as well. But again, it's about the people for us, and it's the educational component. And we have been working on a curriculum, and I've had an opportunity to read, your regulations here, and again, there are many similarities in that. The only thing you guys are able to have 5 plants now, we can't do that because, of course, we have to go through a system to do it. And we've been working on how we would structure that here with what you already have in place within other communities as well. But that educational component, we'll work on certifications. We are working on certifications. We've done it. We've put the certification together. So it's all about rolling it out now, and how we roll it out here. But where we would actually offer this online certification, the technical officers will come get the training and come back and, teach the others, how to actually operate in this space. So we're looking for great things to come.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited. I don't know if anybody else in the room is excited. It's so excited that they have a question or a comment. I see a hand here already. Could you please come to the podium and speak? Thank you.
Good afternoon. My question is to Dr. Snowden. Dr. Whitfield, okay, because you mentioned about pain, and I'm just wondering, can the education start now through my question? Because I'm thinking, I was walking up here this afternoon and Aya had to help me up the hill, so I'm telling him about the pain in my knees, and but then I'm thinking how using a cannabis product would interact with, say, drugs that you're taking for cancer or things like that.
Right.
So that's what. So as you mentioned that you're a doctor as well, so I just wanted to find out about those interactions because that is one of the fears that it may interact with other things like porn in particular.
Okay, yeah, all right, there we go. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, great. So I don't think God would have put a cannabinoid receptor system in our bodies if there was not a need for it. And you find it in other mammals as well. It's really concentrated in the GI tract. So a lot of side effects come from when people say, I get the munchies when I smoke or when I do edibles or have other GI side effects is because a lot of cannabinoid receptors are in the system. When you talk about cannabis, I'm not going to say marijuana, but cannabis, THC and CBD are the two main active ingredients. THC is the one that gives the psychoactive component. CBD tends to have more of a medicinal effect, but in combination, they can do great and wonderful things. It's knowing those ratios. Because it's been illegal for so long, we have not been able to study that. So now having our institute, Southern University, as a system, as a venue to study cannabis and how it can impact you, we'll know more about how it would interact with someone who's taking blood pressure medications or someone that's being treated for anxiety or depression. So we don't have all of that information, And just like with anything, it's amazing how my patients will sometimes question a prescription that I will give them, but they'll go to the pharmacy and buy something and mix that with the medication that they're already taking. And so I can't answer you completely about what interactions may happen, but there's potential side effects. And I'll say this openly as well. Cannabis is not the panacea. It's not going to cure everything. There's some disorders with glaucoma, for instance. We know that it does improve or decrease intraocular pressure in patients with glaucoma, but the glaucoma medications that we currently have are just as effective, if not better, for treating it. So there's a movie that you guys may have heard of, Friday, and they talk about using cannabis to treat glaucoma. It's a joke, but it speaks to the medicinal benefits of the drug. So there's a lot of research that needs to be done. St. Kitts and Nevis will be involved in that, helping us move forward. So it's, again, not just the education component, but the research components as well. And I hope to have more answers for you, but I can tell you that it does effectively treat pain in many folks. And I've seen in my personal patients a reduction in the numbers of the usage of pain medications. And so, of course, that improves, decrease the risk of overdoses and suicides, the types of things as well. Great question.
Thank you very much for that, Doctor. I'm just here to narrate Dr. Alexander's choice to join the panel at this point. So I'm going to just let him interject since he's chosen to do so.
Thank you. I see everybody trying to sum up this interaction, and being that I've been to Southern one more time than Samal, I think I have a greater understanding of it. For me, it's aligned purpose. It's not just alignment, because you could line up sometimes, but it's aligned purpose. I don't remember who it was, if it was my good friend here, my even greater friend over there. But he said something that it's a phrase that we use very often here in the Caribbean, and it speaks towards regionality and Caribbean unity. We often say that just same slave ship dropping us off at different ports. And I remember hearing that at Southern University, and feeling it, because I never understood that Southern hospitality was a real thing, because the Americans are great at marketing. And they come up with these phrases. But being on the university campus, feeling that black excellence, and seeing deans and chancellors knowing the gardeners, sharing burgers with them, it's a different feel. It's all I've dreamt of all my life, to be in a room where there's no ego and we're just about what we're about. So aligned purpose is how I definitely sum it up. And then Carl asked a question about research. The good doctor answered brilliantly and said it's still ongoing. But even at Southern, I'm going to give this anecdote and then finish. Like I said, I've been there twice. On the second trip, we were taken to a farm, and I remember being disgruntled. I'm here for this. This is a cannabis trip, where I'm not here for any more farming, That's for Samuel. And we met a doctor on the farm, and that's the next thing about Southern. Like, everybody enjoys what they're doing. It could be the highest PhD professor, and they're putting a computer larger than this down into the stomachs of the cattle on the farm. And I'm asking, like, what is that? They're testing the pH, watching what the cattle are being fed to make sure that everything there is being done efficiently. And then go on to find out that this doctor that's overseeing the pellets, the large computers being shoved down the cattle's throat, is a primatologist. And he's been to St. Kitts. He stayed right here, they're married. So as soon as he heard St. Kitts, he lit up. And his most impactful interaction here was with a taxi driver. Even though he was a primatologist, even though he was a doctor, he wasn't with anything else, but the great interaction he had with one of the taximen here. But he went on to share with me that they had pellets that size that could fit inside of a monkey. He also shared with me some very recent research where it says that the green vervet monkey, the one that's been a total pest here in St. Kitts, that monkey, its cardiorespiratory system is identical to us humans. Which means here in St. Kitts, instead of seeing them as what do we see them as? They could be the future of what could be our even more lucrative than cannabis. Because we could be carrying out and conducting research on hypertension. All the drugs that we get from other entities that are not for black and brown people, we could be testing them out here right here in St. Kitts. And at the same time, providing solutions for a multiplicity of other things. And that's only because black and brown people came together, reduced the ego, and thought about the people. So it would be remiss of me if I didn't come in and join in, because it's been aligned purpose all the way. We are supposed to be seated here. We're supposed to be seated here, and we're going to continue to sit here.
Very well. Very well stated.
One time for aligned purpose. Okay, I see a hand. Please come.
When you use the word remiss, say that it would be remiss of me to not just summarize what you said, Garth and Ambassador Claxton said this well. For me, that is the true historicity of this event. We spoke about Cannabis Festival in St. Kitts. That's all good. I'm not very old. I'm not very young either. But I don't remember, and having lived in too many countries for the Caribbean, I don't recall something as momentous as this being done, and I look at the head table and I see people look like me. That for me is the true historicity. That for me is history in the making, in the sense that we are now empowered to the extent that we can give back well beyond our borders. And for me, and this for me is what speaks to when you see Ambassador Claxton. I never know where it's home for her, because it's New York, and it's you know it's down in the South, and then it's St. Kitts sometimes. But I think this is precisely what happens when individuals come together for a good cause. Dr. Whitfield, as a medical doctor myself, I was very relieved to hear that some of the education aspect of this is the continuing education, because I too worry about that. I think what it is that many of us medical doctors are now trying to catch up. I think the challenge for me is really that, when patients ask me why I actually recommend CBD as part of the treatment for especially mental health conditions, the full spectrum from anxiety and depression, is because I say to them, I'm not just giving you a pill or a medication. I am also opening up a community, which is what, when you look at mental health in so many of its flavors, it's really that social isolation component. The fact that, and as Black people, what we've lacked is this sort of unified culture. I grew up in the Caribbean. My uncles were Rastafarians, and I always thought that this was the one sort of unifying culture that we had in the Caribbean as Black people. We can call ourselves Christians and everything else, but Rastafarians, they call all their wives empress, right? I mean, just start there. There's a unifying thing about that, and I worry about that. There can be a degree of territorialism around this, to the extent that it's also not just part of their ceremonial activity, it's part of their treatment. And it came up today in the sense that we begin to do this, and then individuals who, Rasta prayer doesn't mean I hear that's dread, and so you don't have to be dread to be Rasta. There's a whole song about that. But at the same time, I worry about so much intellectualization that begins to be perceived as a threat. I don't know if we can stop individuals who practice with this herb all the time, take it away from them and start legislate to the extent that they feel like we've taken away something that has far more sentimental value and religious value to them. And I don't know how quickly the education of us doctors can catch up to create a collaborative environment where these individuals, because there's a lot of learning. I've had them on a TV show with me, and I can tell you, I sat there and I thought I was just learning a new side of medicine altogether. When I was in the US and I did the ECS system and looking at it for the treatment of refractory epilepsy, especially in kids, Lennox-Gastaut and so on, and syndromes, you begin to really understand, right? But I wonder how we begin to engage these individuals to the extent that some of the CEs as well that we do just not sort of sideline them, that they become part of it, because a lot of the side effects that we may see, the drug-drug interaction, that we don't know what they are. It's a very big system, so it's not ultra-selective in a sense that it's very easy for them to get drug-drug interaction. But we as medical doctors really want to treat this. I think the person who has a side effect from any of these drugs are going to go quicker to the emergency room than they go back to one of these practitioners. So I think we cannot begin to create an environment of hostility. And I wonder part of the education component has to be about how we actually collaborate to the extent that these folks are always included in part of the decision making. That's one. The second thing is, I have struggled as a medical practitioner for the last 20 years of my practice with the concept of evidence-based practice. I've always felt that we say it's a very loose term. It's very hard for me to think of 100 white men from Minnesota and it's a drug that works for them, and I certainly think that's going to work for me as a black man here living in the Caribbean, because artificial intelligence gives us the opportunity right now to take some of that data, curate that data, and begin to train our AI modules. AI is not something that falls from the sky. If it's garbage in, it's garbage out. And to the extent that, how do we begin to take some of that data ourselves right here in St. Kitts in the Caribbean and begin to have data that is truly actionable? I think from you, it's a perfect sandbox. Not that we throw ethics to the side, but I think legislation doesn't always catch up in time enough to allow for that type of research that you're doing. How can St. Kitts become part of that research? And how can some of that data that we use here become so rich that it informs on the practice? As we move towards digitalization of health records, I think AI is going to be a big part of that. And I certainly hope that that technological aspect of it is one of the things that actually comes to bear in some of the way that this pans out in the time. Thank you.
Just to make sure that we get that message out. So it won't happen overnight, but if we continue to do this, it will get out there. And thank you for your commitment and dedication.
At this time, I'm going to ask again if there are any more questions from the floor. Anybody else? My co-chair in the back. No questions for this panel? No questions for this panel, my co-chair in the back? Okay, no problem. If there are no more questions, I would like to bring this particular discussion to a close. This is our third and final Diaspora discussion of the day. I would like to take a moment to say how grateful I am to be a part of this entire ongoing project today. Can't wait to be here tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining us. All of our guests who joined us online, all of the CEOs from around the region, our researchers in the region as well, Dr. Emmanuel, everybody who was a part of making today what it was and who will be a part of making tomorrow what it will be. And I mean that in the literal sense of tomorrow and the figurative sense of tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining us. Please take a walk outside and enjoy the rest of the presentations. There's a lot to see, there's a lot to smell. You can ask about it. Would you like to come and lead that for me, please? As my co-chair, thank you so much.
Give thanks, greetings to all, and I would like to say thanks to the members of the head table from Southern University and the minister and Dr. Garfield. I don't really know your name too much, but you are your mother of earth. We give thanks because we don't like to count out our wild mothers them. So within this strength, and I would like to give our ancestors and the Almighty the love that He always ensure that I and I as people spiritually engage with this herbal aspect of life, because it's the life we live for within the herb. So we say, many a time that they afflicted I and I from my youth, may I now say, many a time that they afflicted I and I from my youth, and not prevail against I and I. The plow upon I and I back, they make long their flows. Highly Selassie is righteous, he's cut us under the card of the wicked. Let them be ashamed and confound the hate of Zion. Let them be at the grass of the house top, with the before he go it up. Move in not his hand, not the she shall he bosom. Neither by saying, the blessing of the Lord be upon you. But rather, we bless you in the name of the living I. Hail I, Selassie I, King Rastafari, Empress Menen I, great ancestors I, great gods and goddesses of the ancient black eternal race. Give thanks, blessed love.
A perfect ending. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow. Enjoy.